If you want to build a lead generation machine for your B2B business, the first thing you have to do is to create valuable content. You have heard it multiple times from multiple people, especially from the influencers in the digital marketing space. Now, to create content, there are three popular formats. One, you have video content, vlogs, as seen on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Two, you have written content, blogs that people post on Facebook, LinkedIn, and their own websites. While video content has the highest conversion rates, written content helps you rank in Google and generate traffic. Now, there is a third one, which was popular in 1940s and is coming back into popularity in the recent years. And that is audio content, also known as podcasts. In this video, I will tell you all about podcasting, its history, growth, why you should care as a B2B owner. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I am Praveen Telu, founder of Podcast Buffs, and you are watching lesson number 1, what is a B2B podcast and how does it work? This lesson is a part of the free course called B2B Podcasting Mastered, brought to you by the one and only Podcast Buffs. Now, why you as a business owner should care about starting a B2B podcast? Here is why. Podcasts have the highest conversion rates like video content and the SEO benefits of written content. Podcast helps you get in front of your customers right when they are highly focused. While videos and written text-based content need viewers to give their 100% attention, podcasts don't need that. In fact, study shows that 94% of podcast listeners listen to an episode while doing other tasks. Customers don't yet see podcasts as an advertising channel, as they perceive YouTube or social media. They perceive it as a relationship building medium. A medium that builds real, intimate relationships with the host and the company behind a podcast. Isn't that the best position for you and your business to be in? Having a loyal fan base of listeners who could turn into loyal customers? If your answer is yes, you should launch a B2B podcast today. You should put your unique brand voice out there and connect with potential customers. I'm doing the same thing with this course, right? The podcasting industry is in such a phase right now that it is not saturated with ads and promotions. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean it is a small industry. There are 2+ million podcasts out there. Does this ring any bells? Well, if you ask me, yes. See, I see it this way. Podcasting is in a phase where consumers know that they can get value by listening to episodes without being advertised to. They know that their time spent is well spent. This is the exact phase where blogging is in 2000s and social media is in 2005 and where YouTube is in 2010. And that's one more reason why you should start a podcast today. A B2B podcast is just like any other podcast that educates and entertains your target audience, but with the goal of generating leads and sales for your business. We do this by building genuine relationships with your audience and showing them why your services or products are the right fit for their needs, all while not coming out as salesy. Remember, people don't like to be sold to, but they love to buy. A B2B podcast helps you gain their trust and love, and sales become inevitable. Now, let's back up a bit and discuss how all this podcasting started, shall we? Podcasting history and its growth. Podcasts are a relatively new content sharing platform. Podcasting history suggests that it all began in 2004, thanks to MTV video jockey Adam Curry and a software developer called David Weiner. These two pioneers got the idea of podcasting rolling. Ben Hammersley, a Guardian journalist, put a face to the medium by coining the term podcasting in his 2004 article titled Audible Revolution, which I think was a fitting title. From there, podcasting grew in popularity as more people bought into the idea of free on-demand audio. Books were written, experts rose up, podcasting services were launched, and even the former US President, George W. Bush, delivered his weekly address as a podcast. In 2006, the visionary inventor and co-founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, demonstrated how to record a podcast in his annual keynote live from Macworld. Within 7 years, in 2013, the iTunes podcast hit a significant milestone by crossing 1 billion subscriptions, spread across 250,000 podcast shows. A large part of the skyrocketing popularity of podcasts was fueled by the ubiquity of smartphones, with the revolutionary iPhone debuting in 2007. Here is a quote from Jeff DeHadrins. Start quote. Journalists have linked this online podcasting boom to the ubiquity of smartphones, time spent in transit, and online music services. Others attribute it to the brain stimulating and addictive effects of audio learning or the multitasking potential of listening. The beauty is in the overlap. End quote. In the last few years, podcasts have gradually transitioned from a niche format only known to tech-savvy audience to the mainstream audience. People are catching up with the latest episodes of their favorite shows on the go, even more than before, and major players are scrambling for a share in this increasingly lucrative industry. Here is an infographic that gives you a timeline view of the podcasting industry's growth. 2003, the first podcast premieres as radio open source. 2004, an article in The Guardian coins the term podcasting. In the same year, Libsyn.com launched as the first podcasting hosting provider. 2005, iTunes 4.9 is released with native support of podcasts. The same year, George W. Bush became the first US president to deliver his weekly as a podcast. During the same time, podcast has been named the word of the year. 2006, Apple releases GarageBand with a built-in podcast maker. 2007, two events happened this year. Wrigley Gervais sets the highest record for the most downloaded podcast at 261,000 downloads. And Google buys the podcast-friendly RSS feed burner for $100 million. 2011, Adam Carolla breaks the highest record for the most downloaded podcast at 59 million downloads. In 2012, Edison Research reports that 29% of Americans has downloaded at least one podcast. 2013, Apple announces 1 billion podcast subscribers. 2014, Apple buys podcast app Swell for $30 million. 2019, Spotify acquires the podcast network Anchor FM and Gimlet Media to position itself as a major player in the podcasting market. 2020, widely popular podcaster Joe Rogan signs a multi-year license with Spotify. In the same year, SiriusXM acquires podcasting app Stitcher. Podcasting went from a new kid in the block to a whole $11.46 billion industry in just 20 years. By now, you have got an idea about the history, growth, and the reasons you should start a B2B podcast. If you are still not convinced, check out my next video where I talk about the benefits of podcasting for your business and back up my words with real-world studies, statistics, and numbers. We'll see you there.